Hey guys, Vanguard Circle Vanguard deck profiles. So who guys journal that comes driving stuff. So this time we're covering DZ set 4, Keter Sanctuary, Destined, Alden, and it's day 2 of me recording in a hot room and probably gonna die of heat stroke. So let's get the start, shall we? And see what we got. The new Alden. I don't care for it, but I mean, to be fair though, it is interesting the way it plays, and I think on debut day I saw a lot more people smacking it than praising it, and then like the day after I saw more people praising it, so I don't know, I'm 50-50 on this. It's definitely my least favorite of the Destined ones, but for its own respective reasons. So let's get the start, shall we, and see what we got. Actually, wait, that's a lie. It's not my least favorite, it's the second least favorite so far. First of today we have Energy Generator. It's our ride deck crest. You have ride deck crest in your ride deck. Auto ride deck, when you drive, please card into your cards every 1 second, energy charge 3, then contains me have 10 energy, and then auto became your ride face, energy charge 3, then act once per turn, so energy plus 7, draw a card. All around pretty solid. You get a free 3 energy every turn. This deck has one very specific card. If we're going to go even more specific, a grade 3 that takes a 4 energy on place, so being able to constantly get your energy back is great. And then you are never going to use this to draw a card, especially because said grade 3 literally does the exact same thing for a cheaper cost. But if you ever run into a situation where you can't afford that, go ahead and use it. Either way, that's a ride deck crest. And before we continue on, I just want to put a disclaimer here now. This version of the deck, if we've all been here long enough, then you know that I tend to, when new cards come out, just build the deck around new cards, even if I don't like said new cards, just so I have an excuse to do the deck profile. This is one of those times. For the record, this is not the build I would personally use past this set. The only reason these cards are here is to give them the benefit of the doubt. That's all. So when this set ends, I'm going to take out those cards, and I'll more or less be clear of what cards those are as we get to them. First of today, though, we have our starter, and Knight of Heavenly Expression, Adamus. Grade 0 boost, 5k, shows his K base, auto removal, second draw card, standard starter, no special free draw if you go second. You can make this any starter you want. You can even make it the old Adamus starter, but I just choose to make it this one because, you know, it follows the theme of the Destined line. And I really find it cool how Alden actually, unlike Zorga, kept his ride line the exact same. I mean, well, he's similar to Mortar then, where he kept his ride line the exact same, but everyone kind of got an upgrade. Like Knight of Heavenly Expression, we've got Knight of Heavenly Soul, and then Everlasting Sky Knight Sodus. My only wish is that they all originally had Heavenly in their name. I wish they didn't originally have Heavenly in their name, because then it'd be really cool for them to all evolve and then transcend to Heavenly. Anyways, so that's it for our starter. Then we have Overtrigger and True Arbitrator Dragon of 100 Swords Dervaso. Grid Zone boost, 50k shield, 5k power. Overtrigger in your deck. When voted as Drug, move that card, draw a card, choose on mutes, it gets plus move of the turn. And if voted during Jet Check, activate it's justified. Would you get until end of your turn? You also perform Jet Checks with the battle you regard attack. All around pretty solid. Rear million in a draw whenever you drive check or jam checks this, and if you drive check it, you get rear guard drive checks, which is solid if you play this deck the right way, which for the record, I will never be able to do because this deck is for some reason in my head more complicated to play than OG Alden. But if you play this deck right, you can set yourself up for 6 drive checks. Technically, if you built a different way, and probably built the way I would intentionally build this if I wasn't trying to give benefit of the doubt to these new cards that I don't like to use, then you could, I think in theory, get like 7 or 8 drive checks. But either way, Dervaso is a nice overtrigger to have. If you want to run Vulnerable for multi-attack, you can. It's for you for recycling. The new Dark Overtrigger for, you know, healing and calling, or just want to run Armortino because I like it more than Dervaso, go ahead. But I choose to make it Dervaso because A, I like to run the Nation Overtriggers, and B, I like Dervaso a lot more than I like Armortino. Though Armortino is making a strong case recently. Then we have our normal triggers. First, we have 3 copies of Protection Magic Pro Obi. Grade 0 boost, 5k shield, 4k base, draw, Vanguard Circle, Vanguard Circle, grade 3 grade, 5,000 shield. So 10k shield is really nice to have. It's also draw triggers that helps increase the hand. The whole point of this deck is to, quote unquote, be defensive. So being able to draw more cards is nice, and also be a 10k shield in of itself is great. So we have 3 draw triggers for that. And then, of course, we have 8 crits because of the whole point of the deck is to be defensive. Might as well aggro with the crits. So 8 crits. You can make Violation whatever the hell you want. I would have made it Clivema. The reason why I didn't, even though most of the time I'd make like the Destined over triggers the same as the faded ones, because the old Alden existed before this, and that Alden, I literally copied the trigger lineup from that Alden deck. So that Alden ran Violation Rigor, so this one runs it. And the same with this heal trigger over here, but we'll get to that in a second. But again, this can be whatever crit you want. And then Blade Feather Dragon Guard, so boost 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, and then boost to shove the soul shooter, you can take up the turn. Okay, you can build Alden many different ways, but if you have the ability to, I just suggest running this because you never know how your game plans are going to end up. Being able to help increase your soul in the situations where you break is nice, and that 2k, in certain very specific situations, it'll make the difference. So always want to be careful of that. I'm able for heals and recuperate Angel, grade 0 boost, 50k shield, 5k power. You can make this any heal you want. You can even make it the counter heals. I just choose not to make it the counter heals because I don't like their fluctuating 10, 25k shield. I'd much rather have the consistent 50k shield instead. But run whatever heal you want. And again, I would have normally made this the Arnez, I think its name is, from Raziel's deck. But the reason why I didn't is because, again, this was copied from Alden, the OG one. So might as well keep the triggers there. Then move on to our grade 1s. 3 copies of the only reason this card is here, simply because of this is one of the cards that's benefit of the doubt, Wafting Owl. So grade 1 boost 5 Shoda K base. Okay, the other reason is because I really love its feathers. It looks really cool. Continues Rearguard Guard Circle with Vanguards and Alden with the Divine Skill. It gets 5,000 shield and 5,000 power. Atomable returns. 13k base, 10k shield. Okay, it's nice to have, but anyone that has ever met me, and if you don't even have to meet me for this, if you watch any of the other deck profiles, then you know that my initial words of any grade 1 is rush like hell. So having a card that gets 5k shield in a deck that is supposed to be defensive is a no for me. I want full-on aggro with this, but Wafting Owl is here, A, for benefit of the doubt, but B, it's new cards, and might as well show it off because I don't think a lot of people are going to show off Wafting Owl anyways, especially with another very specific grade 2 here that I would not run otherwise, and I'm definitely going to ditch after the set drops. But either way, though, Wafting Owl is a solid grade 1. It is extra shield power, so in case you need it for big attacks such as Zorga, you can help handle it there, and it is a 13k swing, worst case scenario, and Superior Calling with Alden is a 23k swing, so it's not bad. It's not my type of grade 1, but it is still a decent grade 1 at that in the deck that it's in, so I'm only giving it a 3 of. I have 4 copies of Night of Heavenly Pitch per cell. Okay, what I really loved about Alden is a lot of people shat on its 2 restanding cards, this and the grade 0, when the new Alden came out, and my immediate response to that is, doesn't this just mean you can now restand columns compared to like restanding only the front row rear guards? And I mean, technically you could restand columns, but it required a little bit more effort. And that's to this point is still my main question here. Did people just skip over that part? Because Perso never said they had to be in the same column that he stands. And it was good on boost 5k Shoda AK base. Yes, he has to be in center back row for his ability to activate, but all the back row center rear guard circle, I think about that he boosted. If your opponent's vanguards are grade 3 or greater, CB1 shove to soul, choose the same number of your rested rear guards, the number of card rear guards placed by the ability of your vanguard Alden card in during the battle phase of this turn. Stand them, and if you stand 2 or more cards, you may draw a card. Okay, here's my issue. A lot of people just kind of shat on Perso immediately, and I didn't like read into full detail because like it was kind of like immediate release to Alden's news, but my knowledge of how this card works is it would still proc from Alden getting the skill of this, meaning this thing could still stand 2 units, get you the draw, and you may be thinking, oh, center back row, well, you can only call it to center back row. No, what you do is you play the way I play, you aggro this, you call it at the start of the game, you beat the opponent down with this, they're not going to kill it because, you know, it only works in center back row, and because you called it to the front row, they're not going to kill it. Then what you do is you use Alden's skill to superior call over during the main phase with the divine skill, bounce it back to the hand with Alden's own skill, and then call it to back row center, and whoop-de-da, you got an extra attack in the early game, and you got a column restander, because technically speaking, Alden would call 2 to front row. I still don't understand why people don't like this, but I mean, it is what it is. If you want like the less roundabout way of doing that and you want more consistent restand, you can run the grade 0, but honestly, this gets you soul, it gets you a draw, and it has like a self-sustaining combo in the deck, and it's a 4. Like, it allows me to be aggressive in the early game, and as I've said earlier, I like to be aggressive, so he gets the 4 for me. I see why people don't like him, but like, mate, come on, it fits, it really does. We have 4 copies of Heavenly Defense Dragon, Regfluence Dragon, grade 1 boost, 5k Shoda AK base, continues rear guard circle, and battle this unit boosted. If your vanguards are grade 3 grade Alden plus 5 power, so 13k base, nice to have. Then auto rear guard circle, when it boosts a grade 3 grade Vanguard Alden the card name, soul charge 1, and it gets 2,000 power for that battle. So if it boosts the Vanguard, it's a 15k booster who gets you a soul charge. It's nice. This deck, outside of this 1 grade 3 and Alden's single soul blast skill that only works once per game, does not take up any soul at all. Again, this deck, because it's Keter, it can technically run any cards, and there are a lot of good Keter cards that take up soul, but like, if you're going to follow this build, you will never need to call this behind back center. So only call this behind back center for numbers. Otherwise, it's always called Perso for restand columns. But Regfluence Dragon is a solid grade 1 just because it is the 15k booster if it's boosting the Vanguard. If it's only boosting the rear guard, it's still 13k boost nonetheless. So it is a nice grade 1. I do like to have it in this deck. And out of all of the new cards that are here, it's probably the one outside of this that are going to stay. This one might stay depending on how decent I find Perso. But either way, for Regfluence, it's a good grade 1. And it's one of the more likely cards to stay in this deck. Then we have 4 copies of Bringer Protection Kethlin, grade 1 boost, 5k, 0 souls, k base, continues set on, but for sentinels deck, let's put on guard circle, choose one of your units. It cannot be hit on the battle if your hand has 2 more cards in it. Choose a card from hands, card, standard PG. Nothing to specify, basically means there's also no one card in hand placed on guard circle. You don't have discard, which is great, because that means you can be as aggressive as you want in the early game. I can't say it. Actually, wait, no. I can say as much as this one. Rush like ever living hell, because whatever your opponent doesn't kill before you get to grade 3, you just divine skill back to the hand, meaning if you so wish it, you can call PGs to rear guard. I had to do that one one time, and I still don't regret that decision. But anyways, once your opponent eventually counterattacks you, then you have little hand cards, Keflin, Middle Finger, you're safe. All around pretty solid PG. You can run any PG you want. You can run Paladinium Zeo Dragon. You could run Aegis Meyer Dragon. I choose to make it Keflin because it does actually fit the theme of the deck. Well, I like to always, use the new triggers and the newer PGs, and this is closer to the time of new Alden's release. But the reason why I made it Keflin specifically is because Alden is the Destined one of protection. This one's literal card name is, and I quote, Bringer of Protection. So, kind of fits. 4 of Keflin. Then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, one of in the rad deck, none in the main deck of Knight of Heavenly Soul, Tranquilla, grade 1 boost, 5k shield, AK base, auto, win Rotopon by Everlasting Knight Sodus, check top 5, 2 to 1, grade 2 from or greater from one of them, reveal, put your hand, shuffle your deck, if you do not reveal a card, energy charge 2. All around pretty solid. My main hate with the old Alden line is the fact that you had to, not the fact that you had to reveal 3 different grades. That was easy, at least for the grade 1. The grade 2, depending on how aggro it was, will sometimes be difficult, sometimes not. But the fact that you could only pick a card of the grade that you're riding from, like old Tranquil, only allowed you to pick a grade 1 or less. Old Sodus only allowed you to pick a grade 2 or less. I love the fact that the new Tranquil, while yes, it doesn't allow you to add a grade 1 or lower to your hand, maybe especially because there are more cards nowadays that search PGs, this card still allows you to pretty much add anything that's grade 2 or greater to hand, so Persona Ride or one of your 2 really good grade 2s. And then if you don't add something, you get to Energy Charge 2, which is very helpful to either turbo out this thing's skill for later turns or just immediately access that on your second turn if you went second. So all around pretty solid. I do love this grade 1 a lot. I think it's nice. I really love his art. He looks badass as all hell. So one of in the ride deck, none in the main deck, has no rearguard skills, but hey, it's good for what it is. Then we have 4 copies of Sharpless Knight Air Max, so great turn is a 5k shield, 10k base. For a solid 5 minutes, I debated if I should drop this for Gmet, but then I was like, I'm going to get rid of Gmet after I do the deck profile, so yeah, that's where Air Max comes in. Anyways, auto when placed on Rearguard Circle. If you use Alden's card name, it gets 5,000 power for that turn. If it was placed by your card's ability, plus 15,000 instead of 5k. All around pretty solid. It can be placed by any card ability to get the 15k. I mentioned that because Sodia has superior calls, but being able to get a 5k regardless on the Vanguards and Alden is great, and most of the time you are going to superior call anyway, so it's going to be a 25k swinger. It is very nice to have, especially in a deck that can, again, call over stuff, and then if you play it right, loop them back to the board and get more numbers. So Air Mac is all around a very solid grade 2. I do like him a lot. I think he's an amazing option to have because, again, just a free 25k swing, and if worse comes to worse and he's not going to be your superior call target, as long as you're at grade 3, he's a free 15k. So all around solid grade 2. I do think he's great, so 4 for me. And then 4 copies of the grade 2 I thought was really cool because of how the skills were used in the anime, but because they didn't explain it, I assumed this was the card with the restand skill and not this. And while I do think this card having the restand effect is great, it now gives me no reason to run this card outside of this set simply to give it the benefit of the doubt. Again, I say, like, okay, mainly there are only 2 cards here that are here for benefit of the doubt. This and this, most likely neither of these 2 are staying once, like, this deck gets more support. This might stay depending, again, on, like, how situations work and how much I like Purcell, but, like, 2 of the 4 cards that are in this deck that are new, I'm not keeping. Anyways, Knight of Skyfall is Gmet, grade 2 and 5k shield, 10k base, auto and interceptor of your Vanguards are grade 3, greater Alden, plus 20,000 shield for the battle. Okay, 20,000 shield is nice, don't get me wrong. It's a 25k shield. If you intercept with it against a grade 3 that Persona Road, if they don't boost for whatever reason, it's 23 to 38 if they don't have a way of increasing power, so it's a 2 to pass. That's fine. It's great, don't get me wrong. But so, as many people pointed out the day this was revealed, so many cards have retire effects. And even if Alden bypasses the retire part, he doesn't bypass the part about them being chosen. Meaning, they can be bound, they can be bounced, they can be bot deck, they can be moved to drop zone because that's different than retiring, and more importantly, they can be dominated, which nullifies intercepts to begin with. I don't hate Gmet. I just don't like using defensive cards. I much rather have offensive ones. In the build that will come out when they give us more support, I guarantee you Gmet will probably be the first thing I ditch unless they give away to give him resist. 4 of only because he's a new card. Literally, that is the only conceivable reason why he's in this deck. I will give I can give Wafting Owl the excuse it's a grade 1 and I can rush with it. This right here, this is only here because it's a new card. I swear to you on my life. 4 of Gmet, it's not bad, especially if you want to play defensively. I just don't like to. This is my worst nightmare, especially because he has to intercept. If he was placed on guard circle, he'd be so much better, but because he has to intercept, which sucks. Then we move on to our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the ride deck, none on the main deck of Everlasting Sky Knight Sodus, grade 2 and SF 5K Shield Type base. Okay, I love his art. He is so godly divine. His wings, his arrow, his everything. Anyways, Alden rode upon him by a grade 3 card, all in the card name, so boss 1, check top 5, choose to 1 grade 3 card from one of them called the Vanguard Circle of the deck. All around pretty solid. It's just a simple Soul Blast. Literally only 2 cards in the deck called Soul Blast, so you are free to use that skill whenever the hell you feel like it. Check the top 5, call literally anything. Hell, you want Energy Blast to draw, you can call it. You want to set this up for later, you call it. Light Leads, which is typically what I call from this skill. You want to get Gmet for intercepting, go ahead. You want to get Air Mac, go ahead. Doesn't really matter what you call, you just get an extra rear guard to board. All around, Sodus is a nice grade 1, or grade 2, and if you play it right and you just brick and you flip, I don't know, 4 triggers and a PG, this is based on a real story because I think this happened in the first match. I know this happened on the on-screen game with Alden. I just don't remember if it was this first game or not. But either way, though, calling a PG and then using Alden's skill to superior card right on top of it works really well as a combo, as a pseudo-PG searcher. So one of Sodus in the riot deck, none in the main deck has no rear guard skills, but his skill can pretty much fetch you anything in your deck, that either to go back to hand or to keep on board. So he's a nice one-up for me. Now we move on to our grade 3s. 2 copies of the order that I see people not like very much, but again, for me, it combos really well with Percale in the sense that it gets a column restand, even if it does cost 3 CB in the process, which, if you really feel like that's a problem, guess who you can replace this with? Fire Ass, the grade 1 countercharger Alden got in its first set of support. Fire Ass is not here because Gmet is literally the card I used to replace it. So, again, guess who's getting it replaced next set, and guess who's probably going to replace him? Anyways, determined with the Blade of Protection, grade 3, normal order, play it if your Vanguard's on Alden with Divine Skill, choose your Vanguards, and against Auto Vanguard, on this unit attacks, counter blast, one shield to 1 card from your hand, called to rear guard, store for the deck. All around pretty, or not store for the deck, until end of turn. So all around pretty solid. It's not like once per turn abilities, we found the way to restand the Vanguard, you could do it more than once. To my understanding, while this card doesn't call 2 at the same time, like how it would counter with Alden's skill, this card does not specify you have to call 2, or like for every card you called at the same time via Alden's singular skill. So someone correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding, you can do Alden's on it. Well, first off, give the order skill to Alden. Then Alden attacks you. Let's just say you call over Gmet. So you counter, actually no, to be more specific, you call it over Air Mac. You counterblast, use Alden's effect, you call Gmet, you draw, then you call Gmet. The unit gets plus 10,000 power. You could, both skills go on standby, this effect of Alden and this effect of Alden that it obtained. And then you can choose which one you want to use first. So say, for example, use the bounce skill of Alden, you add Air Mac back to the hand, then you use the skill that it obtained from the order, call Air Mac plus 15,000 power, and then that would still count as 2 superior calls from Alden's specific skill, and you then use Percale to restand your back or rear guard circles. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how that play worked. Either way, though, being able to get more attacks out is pretty solid, especially because it only costs 1 CB. So it's not amazing, especially because it's basically just a worse version of Alden's skill, but it does help you combo a little bit more consistently, so I'm willing to give it the 2 of here. Also just because it looks really cool, and honestly in this deck, even though I do run it out of 2 of, I see both of them consistently enough throughout all the games I play with this deck, so 2 of is a good number for this if you are curious about running it. And we have 4 copies of Light Leads Dragon, the Clear Skies Dragon. So grade 3, 200% right, 13k base. Continues rear guard if your Vanguard's an Alden, gets boost. Or decide not if your Vanguard's an Alden if you have a unit with Alden in the card name. So getting boost just for pretty much the entire game just by having an Alden on board is great. And then auto rear guard at the end of either boosted or attacked. Shove another rear guard and say column as a soul. Whichever you use Alden in the card name plus on this power for that turn. Okay, again, this deck doesn't have Soul Blasters. If you want to check out this for Soul Blasters, you can. But being able to increase the Vanguard's power is great because the Vanguard doesn't get any power on his own, so making him 23k swing is great. And again, if you do run out of the Soul Blasters, say for example, you put in Painkiller as a tech, you could definitely afford to, or better yet, I would suggest Reedy just for triggers because, you know, you have this thing that soul charges, especially if you're going to drop Percale. If you're going to drop Percale, you better make it Reedy just to benefit from all the soul charging. But either way, though, being able to increase numbers of the Vanguard is great. Get more soul cards for whatever combos you want to tech in with Keter Sanctuary cards, and also being a grade 3 booster is amazing. And again, like this order, I will see both 2 copies of this almost every single game. See, the weird part is one of these copies almost always comes from Sodus. So yeah, I don't really need to put this at higher copies because I will guaranteedly hit one every single game. So 2 of Clear Skies, just solid grade 3. Now we have 4 copies of Heavenly Blade of Liason Raziel, or Razanael, grade 3, turns out press 30k base. I am now realizing this is a female. Okay, anyways, auto when placed on rear guard circle, energy blast 4, draw a card. Okay, it is a hefty energy blast 4. but it's in a deck that can superior call during the battle phase, so you can proc that off whenever the hell you feel like it. And not to mention the fact that it is cheaper than this, and if you play it right and you flip a target off of Tranquil, you can at least energy charge 2 to help something up a little bit faster, so that's a fine ability. And then auto rearguard, when your other unit is placed on the rearguard circle that this unit is on by the ability of your grade 3 Vanguard Vanguard with Alden in the card name, that placed unit gets 10,000 power for that turn. If your opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 Vanguard, soul boss 1, choose over the rearguards to stand it. So, God forbid Bushy ever gave Alden the ability to restand the Vanguard, you now have a way in this deck to restand your whole board. What you would do, and there's probably more consistent ways to do this, especially if they ever did make a board restand for Alden. But what you would do is you would do your normal attack routine, whatever, just make sure this is somewhere present on the board, and then obviously give Alden the order ability. Swing with Alden, Counter Blast, call your 2 things over the front row, make sure Razel is one of them. Then use Reznell's skill, stand the back or rear guard circle, and then, you send Purzel at the end of the battle to soul, stand your other rear guards, and then you do the superior skill. Either way, though, being able to being able to give anyone plus 10k is great because it combos really well with this card and this card's order skill. So you call 2 units, both of them getting the plus 10,000 power, but also in the sense that he can stand another rear guard. So if you don't want to play the order, you don't have to. Or say, for example, you don't have Purzel and you still want to restand a column, you can very much do so. All around, Raznell is a very solid supporting grade 3. It does its job so well. It literally takes up the 2 resources no one else in the deck uses, or doesn't use more than once per game. So for Reznell, very solid grade 3. I do love her skill a lot. She's amazing, and I think she's perfect for the Alden deck, or at least the Divine Skill deck. Then we have the last card in the deck, 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the right deck, of Destined, 1 of Protection, Alden. Grade 3, turns up personal 13k base. Exchange Vanguard Circle. When a card will be called by this unit's ability to a rearguard circle with a unit on it, return that unit that was on that rearguard circle to the hand instead of putting it to drop zone. Okay, essentially, if you use its Divine Skill, or its on attack skill, or the order, or the skill again from the order, to call, let's say, on top of Raznell over here, Raznell would go to hand, and then its skills will go on standby to proc its skill. Anyways, being able to basically bounce your stuff back is great, because one of my main hates with, any Paladin deck is that you have to call over stuff, and I will, if you've seen me play, I will at least hesitate a little bit to call over stuff. Not because I see the future potential value in it, I just don't like calling over my units. So being able to bounce them back to my hand so I don't have to lose them makes me feel a lot better. And then Auto Vanguard, when it attacks on anything, counter boss 1, draw a card, choose up to 1 card from the hand, call it to rear guard circle. Till end of your opponent's next turn, it can't be retired by your opponent's card effects, and that unit gets 10 of the power for the turn. Oh yeah, one thing I forgot to mention about the whole can't be retired by effects, it only applies to these 2 abilities. But being able to give something plus 10 is great, not to mention the fact that that is not a mandatory call. It's just a mandatory draw. So if you, say for example, your hand is all triggers, and you don't want to call because you obviously don't want to call a trigger, you can just see if you want to draw. No one's going to force you to call. So always going to keep that in mind when using a skill, but obviously you're going to want to call for more multi-attack and plus 10k. And then Divine Skill, once per game, act Vanguard Circle, Soul Boss 1, check top 7 to 2 cards from one of them called in rearguard circles, and tell your opponent's next turn they cannot be retired by your opponent's card effects, and shuffle your deck. Okay, all around pretty solid. I was really worried that when they printed his skill, or when they announced he was going to be the Just One of Protection, that he was going to have a Divine Skill as a PG. I'm really glad that he was just, I wish he protected them a little bit more, but I'm glad that he protects them a little bit, but still gets to keep the offensive feel, because again, this deck can still get 5 attacks, it can get a board restand out of it. I feel like this deck can get a board restand more consistently compared to OG Alden, and not to mention the fact that it helps recycle your units as much as possible, and not to mention the fact that his Divine Skill isn't something really big flashy, it's just get more rear guards. So if your board's empty, because either your opponent board nuked it, or it's just the starting of the game and you have a bunch of triggers in your hand so you didn't call much, you can just Soul Blast 1 and basically make your board. Alright, I do love Alden's effect a lot. I do think he's great. I don't think that he could have been any better without, making him lose sight of what he is currently, outside of maybe instead of just being retired, it also makes it not necessarily chosen, but it hits either it can't be bound or it can't be bounced, one of the 2. Either way though, I do like Alden's skill a lot. I think he's great. He protects units from going to drop zone, he does protect them a little bit from the retiring effects, and he also gives them good numbers and combos well with his own effects along with the rest of Keter Sentry as a whole. So I give him the 3 of in the main deck, 1 of in the ride deck, and I'm really glad that he kept the aggressive feel while still having that a little bit out of protection, quote unquote. Or I guess consistency is a better word. Without further ado, that's it for the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, I enjoyed the deck a lot more than I thought it would. I really did think when Alden's name was announced, I was going to hate the hell out of this deck because I am not a fan of protection decks. But this deck is actually really fun. It is consistent with its attacking, and even though there are 2 cards in here that I will never use past this point, I am at least glad that I got to try them out. I 25k intercepted once. I'm happy with my life. And Wafting Owl, honestly, listen, it's an owl. It already got my W, but I just don't like the fact that it's a defensive card. But being able to have a good set of grade 1s to attack, attack with, having like a bunch of different combos you can go through and like have a bunch of different ways to kind of board restand if you set it up right is great, especially because again, Alden works with a lot of different Keter cards. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a Keter pile deck, but it's definitely a deck that works well with pretty much anything. So without further ado, I'm going to this one here. I hope you all enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join us for Twitch. I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your Vanguards.